Hi, so with patch 7.2.5 and the opening of the actual raid, the Tomb of Sargeras only a few weeks away now, perhaps as little as 2 weeks away, who knows. I'm going to have a look at the melee DPS trinkets that will be on offer there. First of all, I'm not going to talk about how relatively strong each one is for two reasons. One, it's going to be different for different specs and classes. And the second thing is, Blizzard just changed them when it releases anyway. Trinkets are my biggest nightmare when discussing anything coming in an upcoming patch because they just change it. That's what they do. So the first one on offer is going to be the Infernal Cinders. I'm just going to get rid of that and change it to a stat stick. Where's my stat stick? Now with this trinket, as we can see here, it gives you crit as the passive effects there. And melee attacks have a chance to deal a certain amount of extra fire damage. Doesn't really matter about the number because, again, anything can change. But this is a weird trinket. It gets stronger if other people in your raid have it. There's a number of trinkets in this raid that have weird effects that are going to be very difficult to sim. So even when you see sims of these trinkets, it's going to be totally inaccurate. I mean, sims for trinkets are often inaccurate anyway. But this really is going to be. I mean, look at this. The critical strike chance of this damage is increased by 10% for each ally within 10 yards who bears this item. So you can see what this is like as melee. If there's 5 melee in your raid and you've all got this trinket, well, you're probably going to be within 10 yards of each other most of the fight because you're all going to be on the same target probably. And that's going to increase your crit chance by 50%. Well, that's going to make a significant amount of extra damage. But this is what's going to make it so difficult to sim. What if all of those people don't necessarily want to wear it on a particular fight? Are you going to sort of coordinate with each other? Oh, is anyone using that? Oh, well, it's good for me if you use it, but it's not so good for me if you don't use it. Then what happens on bits of fight where someone's got to run out with something? Then again, you know, that they're out of 10 yards of you and the crit strike goes down again. It's going to be an absolute nightmare to decide whether this trinket is going to be any good for you, even when Blizzard have stopped monkeying about and tuning them and the Simcraft is able to get a good handle on it. Because it's just got all these little things that are going to change in the fight that are going to make it absolutely impossible to test. But it doesn't do any special effects or anything. It's just doing straight up damage. Every now and then it just does a bit of fire damage. So next up we have the Cradle of Anguish. This has haste on it by default. Now this is an interesting one. So while you're above 80% health, you gain 230 strength or agility per second. So we'll see it's already stacked up there. It stacks out of combat even. No problem, as long as you're above 80% health. Now what it says is, if you drop to below 50% health, the effect ends. In other words, you'll lose your stacks. So you need to be above 80% for it to stack up. Well, that should be straightforward at the start of a fight. And then you mustn't drop below 50%, otherwise you've got to get yourself back up to 80% for it to keep going. Now, if we have a look at this, so the way we can model this is to have a go on a tanking training dummy, because this will beat the crap out of me. I'll just keep doing that until it drops me below 50% health. Come on, beat me. Beat me. There we go. So drop below 50% health, and now those stacks have gone. So I'm going to need to heal myself up, and not just above 50%, but be above 80%. Before it will start stacking again, and now above 80%, and it started stacking up again. Again, another mightily difficult one to judge. If on a fight you expect to be at least above 50% of all the time, because remember, you're not going to lose them unless you drop below 50%, then obviously you're getting flat out an extra 2,300 strength or agility from it. If there are going to be periods when you are going to keep dropping low, you're going to keep dropping those stacks. And remember, it takes 10 seconds. It's a tick a second, so it's 10 seconds to get it back up to full. Because you don't just start losing them when you're below 50% health, you just lose the whole lot in one go. Again, it's another one where when you look at sims, you're not really going to be able to tell whether it's going to be great for you. Unless this trinket is so bad that even if you keep it up 100% of the time, it's not going to be good as another trinket. So there's at least some way to potentially sim this. But again, the sims will probably assume 100% uptime. Whether it will be or not, you're just going to have to look at your own logs and decide what's sensible there. So the next trinket is Vial of Ceaseless Toxins. So this has, in my case, strength on it by default. But it has an on-use effect, which does a certain amount of shadow damage. And then another, but as a dot over 20 seconds. Now here's where it gets interesting. If they die while that dot is on them, then the cooldown is reduced by 45 seconds. In other words, if you use this on mobs that are going to die within 20 seconds... then you have basically got a 15-second cooldown on this ability. Now, we can immediately see how this trinket is going to be used and what it's going to be useful for. Is this going to be useful on a single target raid boss? Of course not. How could it be? Because it doesn't even matter about tuning. If this shadow damage that it does was going to be really good for a 1-minute cooldown, then it would be phenomenal for a 15-second cooldown. So clearly that's not the case. Clearly it's going to be balanced around the idea that you're using it on mobs that are going to die within that time. Otherwise you'd make it too powerful in those situations. So what are these situations? Well, potentially adds on a boss fight, yeah, sure, but I don't really think so. I think where this is going to come into its own is, first of all, soloing stuff when you're out in the world, and second of all, Mythic Plus dungeons. Okay, using this on ads, on Mythic Plus dungeons, because they're going to die within 20 seconds. And you're getting it every 15 seconds. It's probably going to be a really good trinket for those situations. The other thing I want you to note here is, it says here that it inflicts its shadow damage to an enemy in melee range. So this time I have the Dungeoneer's Train done as my target. I'm out of melee range. It's not working. And there we go, okay. So you do need a target. It's not like Draft of Souls where it just does it to a random thing. You do get control over it, but you must be in melee range for it to work. You cannot use this at range. Now the next one, Ombral Moonglaives. So this has got versatility by default on the passive effect. And an on-use ability conjures a storm of glaives at your location, causing a load of arcane damage every second to nearby enemies. After 8 seconds, the glaives shatter, causing another burst of arcane damage to enemies in the area. So this implies that we don't need a target. So let's just test this out. There we go. So it's not even forced me to target something. Oh, doesn't that look pretty? And then the burst of it after 8 seconds there. Very interesting for AoE type situations. The proof of this one for raid bosses will be, will its damage be okay for single target and then godly for AoE, in which case Beast Lord type fights where you're mostly on one target but that also you're going to be having ads coming now and then, could make it quite interesting. It's a 1 minute 30-second cooldown, so you're unlikely for most classes going to be able to line this up with DPS cooldowns every time. Again, it's whether it's going to be useful or not, it's one of those things. Do you get away with holding on to it with ads? The ads themselves, if you're going to get full use out of it, have got to live, you'd think, for about 10 seconds, because remember, it's going to do its ticking for 8 seconds and then blow up. So you want to be starting it 8 seconds before they would die anyway, or 9 seconds just to be on the safe side. So how many raid bosses are going to have a situation where you're going to have multiple ads up for that length of time? Usually the way it goes is when you've got lots of ads up, then they tend to be short-lived. If you've got like 2 or 3 hardier ones, then may be useful for that. But again, just like the previous one, this is going to be surely awesome in Mythic Plus when you're doing the tough stuff. When you're doing the stuff that's easy, obviously you tend to be running through mobs quite a lot. There's a lot more movement. Because it stays in one location, if I just show you that, like, it doesn't follow me around, it stays where I popped it. So if you're running around on an easy Mythic Plus and the tank's dragging mobs to the next pack and all the rest of it, not as useful then. But if you're on a highish key and you're forced to deal with one group at a time, could be pretty good. Of course, it is every 1.5 minutes, so you'll have to have a bit of thought about which packs it would be best to use it on without missing out on entire applications. Now, the next one, Engine of Eradication, is a really bizarre one. So this has got Mastery on it by default. Socket there as well, as you can see. Your auto attacks, so not your general attacks, this is just auto attacks, have a chance to increase your strength or agility based on specialization by blah for 12 seconds. Now, so straight away, a bit like Convergence of Fates, there's going to be an RPPM to this, which presumably will be different for different classes because it's based on auto attacks. Some classes will auto attack more quickly than others. But here's the thing. And it expels orbs of fell energy. Collecting an orb increases the duration by 3 seconds. So we're going to give this one a go here. Right, Engine of Eradication there. And here's some orbs. So let's have a look. We collect an orb. Increases the duration there. It will go above 12 seconds as well. So you can actually just gobble them up at whatever rate you want. Obviously, they're not all in melee range. So I've got it up to like 30 seconds there. Remember, it is only off auto attacks. So that's why I'm not using my special attacks, if people are wondering there. But you can see here, I've not had any more orbs spawning. So you can't really guarantee keeping it up 100% of the time. Because as you saw there, there's no like cunning plans involved in when to take the orbs. Because they will allow you to put it up again well above, in fact, the original duration. I'll switch behind here to try and avoid parries because I'm assuming that if I don't actually land a blow with my auto attack, I don't get the chance. I've been waiting at this point. I've fast forwarded in the video, but I've been waiting at this point for quite some time. I've not had any. So there must also be an internal cooldown on it. Oh, it's just the effects just proc there. Some more orbs. So is it a random amount of orbs as well? I only saw 2 that time. So the upshot of it is you won't necessarily, as it stands at the moment, be able to guarantee 100% uptime on it. There's a certain amount of RNG. It could actually be based upon internal cooldowns as well in terms of how often it will proc. Doesn't look to be a stunning one just because it's so unreliable. Obviously, I don't want to say which trinkets are going to be better than others simply because of tuning that can still be carrying on. Not only right up until launch, but after launch itself. This is quite common. Now, the one that we are going to assume is going to be the premier trinket of this tier, Specter of Betrayal. Now, this gives strength by default here, in my case, primary stat. An on-use ability with a 45-second cooldown creates a dread reflection at your location for 1 minute and cause each of your dread reflections to unleash a torrent of magic that deals blah 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 shadow damage over 3 seconds, split evenly among nearby enemies. So at this point, you're sort of saying there's no real advantage single target or AoE. It doesn't do. It just does a certain amount of damage, no matter how many ads you've got there. 45-second cooldown. So, I mean, at first you read this and you go, okay, it creates a dread reflection. Then it says each of your dread reflections to unleash a torrent. Well, we're only creating one. But remember, the dread reflection is up for 1 minute, but it's a 45-second cooldown. So, let's just get the ball rolling here. And then I'm going to use that. So there's my dread reflection. And that's going to be up for a minute. And I'll be back with you when this cooldown is finished. And I'm going to pop another one. So we should have 2 up at that point. So the cooldown's nearly done. He's not doing a great deal. I'm popping it again. And it's just for those 3 seconds when you pop it. So it's like you pop it. They last for a minute. And they do 3 seconds of stuff. And then they don't do anything until you hit it again. So that one's disappeared now. It's had its minute. This one will still be up for a little bit more as well. So with this trinket, of course, what you want to be doing is to making sure you are going to hit it on cooldown. Because if you delay it by 15 seconds and the first one disappears, then when you pop it the second time, you're only getting 1 apparition. So I guess what you need is a situation where each apparition is going to do 2 bursts. One when you first pop it, and the other one when you pop the one to come after it. So you can see here clearly 2 of those. So there you are. That's a quick look at the trinkets that we've got on offer for melee DPS when Tomb of Sargeras comes out. Just a word of warning, as I've noted with several of these trinkets, sure, you're going to see lists of sims, but bear in mind some of these trinkets are going to be more or less powerful depending on circumstances that a simulation can't possibly account for. So I hope you found it interesting. If you did, as always, don't forget to subscribe for further content, share it with other people who might be interested, and until next time, I'll see you later.